I went on a tangent there. Cancel. Let's do this. Let's do that. We're doing this. We're doing that. We're putting this here. We're putting that there. And we're trying to make ourselves some background. Enticing background. There we go. We're back. Also. We'll just do it. Yeah, we'll do it that speed. Yeah, that's fine. Oh yeah, let's change. Yo. Should have been this. It's this one. Okay. I'm doing it. Sorry. I'm trying to think. We'll just make a new thing. Make a new thing. Oh, actually. Yeah, let's do that. Wait, which one is this? No, we'll do a new thing. Because otherwise it'll take from the other styles and I think it'll dilute the style. Come on. Good. Decameron. So I'm doing this again because the audio last night was not the best. It kept popping, and that's due to using too much volume and the yeah. Anyway, so let's do Blue Adder. Oh, Blue Adder. Yeah, let's do. I like the unpredictable. Let's do that. There we go. Yeah. And then we do this and do that and do this. And just check sure. Okay, good. Oh, everyone loves John Dell-ANSI. Or rather, later imported. Oh, shit. Please don't. How much is this? Okay, good.
I say then that such was the energy of the contagion of the said pestilence, that it was not merely propagated from man to man, but, what is much more startling, it was frequently observed that things which had belonged to one sick or dead of the disease, if touched by some other living creature, not of the human species, were the occasion not merely of sickening, but of an almost instantaneous death, whereof my own eyes, as I said a little before, had cognizance, one day among others, by the following experience. the rags of a poor man who had died of the disease being strewn about the open street. Two hogs came thither, and after, as is their wont, no little trifling with their snout, took the rags between their teeth, and tossed them to and fro about their chaps, whereupon almost immediately they gave a few turns, and fell down dead, as if by poison upon the rags which in an evil hour they had disturbed. In which circumstances, not to speak of many others of a similar or even graver complexion, divers apprehensions and imaginations were engendered in the minds of such as were left alive, inclining almost all of them to the same harsh resolution, to wit, to shun and abhor all contact with the sick and all that belonged to them, thinking thereby to make each his own health secure. Among whom there were those who thought that to live temperately and avoid all excess would count for much as a preservative against seizures of this kind. Wherefore they banded together, and, dissociating themselves from all others, formed communities in houses where there were no sick, and lived a separate and secluded life, which they regulated with the utmost care, avoiding every kind of luxury, but eating and drinking very moderately of the most delicate viands and the finest wines, holding converse with none but one another, lest tidings of sickness or death should reach them, and diverting their minds with music and such other delights as they could devise. Others, the bias of whose minds was in the opposite direction, maintained that to drink freely, frequent places of public resort, and take their pleasure with song and revel, sparing to satisfy no appetite, and to laugh and mock at no event, was the sovereign remedy for so great an evil, and at which they affirmed they also put in practice, so far as they were able, resorting day and night, now to this tavern, now to that, drinking with an entire disregard of rule or measure, and by preference making the houses of others as it were their inns, if they but saw in them aught that was particularly to their taste or liking, which they were readily able to do, because the owners, seeing death imminent, had become as reckless of their property as of their lives, so that most of the houses were open to all comers, and no distinction was observed between the stranger who presented himself and the rightful lord. Thus adhering ever to their inhuman determination to shun the sick as far as possible, they ordered their life. In this extremity of our city, suffering and tribulation, the venerable authority of laws, human and divine, was abased and all but totally dissolved, for lack of those who should have administered and enforced them, most of whom, like the rest of the citizens, were either dead or sick, or so hard bested for servants that they were unable to execute any office, whereby every man was free to do what was right in his own eyes. Not a few there were who belonged to neither of the two said parties, but kept a middle course between them, neither laying the same restraint upon their diet as the former, nor allowing themselves the same license in drinking and other dissipations as the latter, but living with a degree of freedom sufficient to satisfy their appetites, and not as recluses. They therefore walked abroad, carrying in their hands flowers or fragrant herbs or divers sorts of spices, which they frequently raised to their noses, deeming it an excellent thing thus to comfort the brain with such perfumes, because the air seemed to be everywhere laden and reeking with the stench emitted by the dead and the dying and the odors of drugs. As a consequence of which custom we may observe that many kinds of perfumes first became current, especially among the women and slaves, being introduced with the view of alleviating and subduing this general insupportableness of spirits and things alike. Some made pretense likewise of keeping constant recourse to some single spot where grew whatever tree had any virtue, whosoever knew its virtues, adding in secret every morning the bark, roots, or leaves to various beverages, and feeding there on sundry times, trusting in some such fashion to acquire a wonderful faculty of expulsion from the body. With respect to their dwelling places, one person slept within the doorways, another beside his threshold, a third behind the post of a gateway. Many passed nights within temples, by permission of the pontiffs or of whoever might have controlled the rover without using violence to anyone. We often see persons falling fainting along the streets until the end, when if carried indoors and placed on their backs upon beds. Or else late before kitchen fires, they fall into an inappreciable slumber, as men, exhausted with excessive labor, will sink motionless before their task is ended. In such cases, medicine avails nothing. This indeed seems a visitation of God more than an epidemic or infectious disorder. Of such former diseases, at one time mild in nature, and yet, to those attacked with them, so violent that, before night, a number will commonly die, while at another season of the year fevers visit men so weakly equipped against them that though not an eighth part fall victim, their sufferings continue during the space of 40 days and 40 nights, extending in certain cases over 12 months, a lengthier period, too, than the years assigned. In Holy Scripture, for the punishment inflicted on Egypt in plague after plague for resisting Moses. These miseries wrought, the desolation which overwhelmed everything was no sooner dispersed, leaving people scarce breathing rather than recovered from their fears and apprehension, than another pestilence was manifested afresh in greater strength to the affright of everyone. Then, behold, by little and little the multitude dwindled away daily till, just as the utmost extreme of mortal despair reached, hardly did a handful escape the universal pestilence which spared none, where those who still retained any reason at all repented with grievous tears of a shamefully protracted agony.
Come, let's see what happens next.
Yet such has ever been the malice and rancor engendered between mankind, that to save itself by flight the strong fell ruthlessly on the weak, nor even here upon earth is there a more sorrowful spectacle, one more fruitful of tears, than what the annals of all cities contain respecting the misfortunes, except the plague of Antoninus, which consumed not merely the army sent against the Parthians by Hadrianus, but almost the entire human race, this sorely to be lamented scourge manifesting the imperfection and frailty of terrestrial prosperity. I shall omit the factitious arts wherein they essay to exercise relief, by means of which it can well be understood that misery reaches a higher pitch in those afflicted with long lingering disease, for a forgetfulness of their habitual enjoyments, than where death takes the spirit with speed. Among such inventions is to enumerate all that may serve for consolation under such distress. First, that device of young people to hand about themselves branches of aromatic myrrh or cassia. Secondly, that of fattening birds for slaughter by administering to them extraordinary food, as well as amassing myrrh, cinnamon, cassia, and such other odorous matters as to such birds accustomed only to eat oat and other grains, appear doubly delectable, by the introduction of which materials the palate of their unfortunate creature is in effect perverted.
Alert, everyone! This is bird flu. that would be a unfortunate twist in that fake history. All right, that was Decameron. Now we'll go to Chaucer.